Hey everybody, welcome to this emergency pod. I'm Jose Tabuana, Alex Musa returning to the podcast, and for the second time, Mr. Lex Tan, host of Ringside Heat, which you can catch on Sauga 960 AM here in Ontario, Canada, 6 p.m. Saturday nights. 9 p.m.
That's right.
Saturday nights, 6 p.m. Sunday evenings, and of course, Lex, I had to tell you, you have picked the wrong week to take a week off of Ringside Heat. That is
Indubitably.
I told you a couple weeks. I asked last week. I'm like, what are we doing for this week's episode? Because I presume we're going to be reacting to what just happened. And you said no, we're taking a week off for SummerSlam because yes, the show would have been airing during SummerSlam, of course, tomorrow night on the WWE Network, or in Alex's case on Peacock. But yes, we know the news. We heard the rumors for months and weeks since. I believe it was Sean Ross Sapp who reported it first. It happened for the first time in 7 years. CM Punk is back in a wrestling ring. CM Punk has made his official debut on AEW Rampage moments ago. I believe I'm uploading this Friday night, if not tomorrow at the latest, but I believe I'm uploading this Friday night before the night closes. He's back. He is back, and he was one of those characters where you wondered, will he ever do it? And even though the rumors were true and Tony Khan pumped the hell out of this all day Friday on social media. It's a start of a new era. It's a big announcement. Of course, you always wonder, it's slightly bad. I'm like,
he does say that a lot.
I mean, you're joking, right? Like, we know what happened in the past. Anything big, like the exploding barbed wire, the big kaboom. It was the tiniest thing. And then War Games. It was the flattest finish. A lot of big moments caught flat. This one was nowhere close to being flat. It was the hottest thing. The crowd was electric to hear cult of personality in a wrestling environment again. Oh, my Lord Almighty. Which of the Lexes want to go first?
Please go ahead.
Tan, all you. Start us off.
Well, I mean, first off, it's been telegraphed for months, and particularly the last couple of weeks, it's been telegraphed to the fans and everything. So I was in a point where I wasn't going to be shocked anymore that it was going to happen. One thing though, I have love for both WWE and AEW, but yes, John Cena had been saying, "Oh yeah, I'm coming back." But then you didn't know when it was going to happen because John was just like, I don't know exactly when it's going to happen. Things got to work out a certain way. And then all of a sudden, boom, there was there. And then the shock of him being there just took over and just like, whoa, this actually happened. It's kind of almost the opposite happened for me because it's like yes, the telegraphing from all the little breadcrumbs and the little clues they left, little things, great. Don't get me wrong, the little things were great that they were doing during the shows to kind of hint here and there. At the same time, it did sort of lose a little bit of its shock value to me. However, amazing Chicago crowd as always. They just bring it every single time any sort of wrestling is over there. WWE, AEW, whatever. Even though CM Punk did not call or indirectly called WWE not professional wrestling.
It's funny because WWE normally does the Allstate Arena. I don't know why they don't do United Center. It's a big arena, and clearly it sounds pretty damn well if you have the right person and the right pop. But the United Center was going on. And to your point, before I get to Mirza, I get it, and yeah, it didn't really sour to me, despite that you heard all the rumors and you're like, he's really gonna do it, he's gonna come back. I knew that as soon as the music hit, it was still going to be special.
Oh, no doubt.
I mean, yes. If all of a sudden you're just having a regular Dynamite show and all of a sudden that music goes off in a bigger surprise, okay, yeah, obviously it's going to be huge. And by the way, I apologize if I sound a bit muffled because I have a really sore jaw. So if I sound like I have a lisp, I'm sorry in advance. I just realized that. But anyway, the fact that it still happened is just so special. And with this, I'm okay that it wasn't a surprise. I'm okay that it was. I mean, technically, you can still say it was because they never formally announced, hey, CM Punk is going to be arriving on Rampage next week, or get ready because, they did say get ready because something big is going to happen, but they never specified it. So you can, by wrestling terms, somewhat a surprise, but I mean, we all knew, but I'm okay that we all knew. because this was something again we waited for a long time. Mirza, let's go to you.
Yeah, honestly, it's well, I'll just say this: WWE better not run in Chicago for a long time because they're never gonna hear the end of this from those fans. But it really was kind of the worst kept secret in wrestling history in a way. But strangely enough, when you hear something like that, you assume you associate it with something negative. But in a way, being the worst kept secret almost worked to their advantage this time around, because I almost feel like this is something that a lot of people see. I have a unique perspective because I wasn't watching wrestling when CM Punk was at his peak, when it was the summer of Punk. I wasn't a fan yet. I didn't start watching until like 2015, 2014. So I missed that whole period of time. That being said, of course, I've heard all about it. I've seen a lot of it. I know obviously, that this is obvious. Like obviously, with that being said, I know this is a huge deal. I know what this means to so many people. A lot of our friends, of course, Jose. This means a lot to a lot of them.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
So with that being said, I almost feel like having it be a complete surprise. Could people have handled that? What would the feeling have been if this just happened completely out of the blue and people had no idea it was coming? Like, could they have emotionally handled that? How I always hear in the old days, like in the old days of wrestling, like Bruno Sammartino, if he wrestled in New York or Pittsburgh and he started selling, people would have heart attacks legit and die because they were that emotionally. That's what you hear. They were that emotionally invested in what was going on. So I always feel like would people have had heart attacks and died if it just happened completely out of the blue with no setup whatsoever, So I almost feel like having those months of build, like, is this going to happen? We're hearing all these stories, will it happen? I almost feel like readied us for the emotional, just, blowback that happened when this finally took place after so long. So
that's a fair point. And I think I can relate to that. When I was at SummerSlam a couple years back in the pre-show, Lex, you only saw the clip recently. Alex, I sent it to the group immediately after it happened when Edge came out, and the sound that I made was not normal. My cousin, and I think I showed Mirza this, but I didn't show you, Lex. My cousin, who was beside me filming, he went to me and he sees me like hyperventilating and freaking out. And I mean, so I think there, I mean, I'm not saying that Edge is as big as Punk, well, in terms of like shock value reaction, but yes, it's when you get caught up in the moment and you get that surprise, you don't know, like you literally lose control. I think when I was at Mania and the Dr. Thugonomics came out, I was freaking out and I started to rap in public.
I was 2 seats away from you at the Raw after Mania when the Undertaker showed up out of nowhere.
Exactly. Yeah, you were
an emotional wreck.
Right. That's right. You were. Yeah, it was Brian beside me, and then you were there. You were beside Brian. Oh, I was again hyperventilating, and I nearly fell in the seat in front of me, and was crying of joy because I'm like, the Undertaker and my special childhood weekend that I dreamed of, it happened. But again, with CM Punk, because we thought that he was done with wrestling for good, and again, rightfully so, because he has so much gripe with WWE. You heard in his promos. I get it. And I don't know if they would have gotten heart attacks, Mirza, but I would expect some hyperventilation would have been damn close. I mean, there was a guy crying.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure there
was more than one.
And that is going to be as memeable as the shocked guy at WrestleMania 30.
Yeah,
in the front row.
Here's the thing,
Miss Girl.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing, like, whether you're a fan of WWE, whether you're a fan of AEW, whether you don't like one or the other, like, this is still obviously a momentous occasion, a huge moment for just wrestling fans as a whole, and I think that's what everyone should keep sight of, for the, like, as much as they can. That this is a huge moment for the fans, whether they love WWE, AEW, whether they hate the other, whatever it is. Like, this is just a big moment for wrestling as a whole, and everyone's been waiting for it for a very long time. So hopefully, I mean, knowing how wwrestling fans are, it's never going to just stay to that. It's always going to be like, tribalism here and there and everywhere.
For sure.
But,
oh my goodness. I don't even want to, I feel like as soon as I type up AEW or WWE in the search on Twitter, it's going to be a cesspool of toxic.
Yeah, absolutely. Comments. So, but even with that in mind, like, this is still obviously a huge moment, for everybody. And it's great to see just how excited everybody is. You can be happy for that at the very least.
Yeah, Lex, I think we said that, like, I mean, my first WWE show, September 2013, was one of you were also at that Raw as well. Were
yes,
you not?
I was at that Raw. Yes,
and you remember the reaction of Punk got in Toronto when he came out. Like
Oh,
the
yeah.
pop was nuts in
Mhm.
Toronto alone. I mean, again, Toronto's not Chicago when it comes to Punk, but we can attest that yes, you know, when CM Punk arrives in an arena and Cult of Personality goes off, you're having the time of your life. And I was actually getting popcorn that night. And as soon as Punk's music hit, I went into a random tunnel that wasn't mine, and I'm just focusing on Punk, and I got so excited I spilled half of my popcorn onto like the concourse floor, and I ran out of the section and ran back to mine because I'm like, that was not me.
Mhm.
Lex, you brought up Tan, you brought up something similar, saying that somebody else had a similar 7-year absence. And to Lex's point, when The Rock came back in 2011, I think that's what Lex's point is. Like, how would you handle the emotion? And when The Rock came back out of nowhere in 2011 on the way to WrestleMania 27, that was, I think you want to attest to that. That was, I think that's where you can bring in Lex's point, saying like that was just something that worked to the perfection of the surprise. Would you agree?
I mean, hey, that's the biggest star at that point to have, and maybe even up to now, to have ever come out of the wrestling business, comes home after a 7-year hiatus, and without any hint of him coming back. It was mind blowing. I mean, like I remember just watching it on that day, and like I was stunned silent, not because not because I mean I love The Rock. The Rock is gonna be my favorite of all time. Hell, I got the WWF Attitude Belt off of eBay as my very first purchase because of my Rock fandom. But when that moment happened, and then the lights went out, the Jim Johnston music started to like build up the suspense,
The
and
electrifying sound effect.
The
exactly.
electricity and all that.
And then all of a
in
sudden,
the stars too, right? I mean, like I don't know how I didn't know. I'm like, I wonder what's this.
They
And
really milked it. They
you
really
don't,
milked it.
it doesn't click. I'm like, electrifying. What's electrifying? You're saying it. What the hell is electrifying? Oh, that guy. Oh shit. Like,
exactly. And then if you smell, and then just the entire arena just erupts. I wish I was there for that, because I was there for when it was February of 2003. I went to the Raw right after No Way Out, after The Rock had beat Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold Steve Austin had beaten Eric Bischoff, and we weren't sure at that point, even with the wrestling websites, No DQ, ProWrestling.com. I'm sorry if I'm giving free advertising over here, but
how dare you?
but yeah, it was still a mystery up to that point whether we were going to get Stone Cold Steve Austin coming out or The Rock. It was a mystery up to that point, and then you saw the helicopter go through the appear on the Air Canada Center screens, and then that pipe organ music, and then is cooking, and everybody just lost their minds until and kept on losing their minds as The Rock just continued to tear into Toronto. Beautiful, beautiful moment. And that's where it works. That's where it works. I would have to agree with you, Jose, that and also Alex, that this is a great moment for anybody who's a wrestling fan, because this built up a lot of goodwill for AEW, not just among their fans, but I think for wrestling fans in general. It doesn't matter if they're marks or just your typical wrestling fan or whatever like that. They built up a lot of goodwill with it, and as much as I would have, as much as I am used to WWE style of keeping it until the very end of the show, I'm okay. I'm at the same. I'm okay at the same time with having it start off at the beginning.
You had to. I mean,
they would have hijacked the entire show.
Yeah, exactly. CM Punk chants for 59 minutes during the commercial breaks, during the matches.
That was the right move.
Jay Cargill could have like a really cool move. That's not Punk. It happens. Just breaking from Fightful, by the way. There was talks that it's going to be a multi-year contract. Punk hasn't accepted the multi-year contract, so right now he's just casually employed. The talk started back in June. And then of course release towards the return was planned for tonight. One last thing before we go, one last point. It's been circulating a lot because of Punk's return. Roman Reigns on a podcast, I'm not sure which one, saying that CM Punk is not as big in the wrestling business, or not as over as people think, when you compare it to The Rock, when you compare it to Cena. So I presume that from that perspective, when you bring up those two, yes, Cena and Rock and maybe Austin had broke mainstream. They absolutely broke mainstream. You know what a can of whoop ass is. You know if you smell, you know that you can't see people. You know it. Do you think, despite that Punk is not, I guess the question is, do you think Roman's right or not? I saw somebody on my Facebook today posting up a bunch of, there was somebody texting a bunch of people, hey, do you know CM Punk? Hey, do you know CM Punk? And everybody saying, no, I don't. No, I don't. They're texting their sister, their mother, their cousin, whatever. No, I don't. And so I guess the point is right. Do you think it matters that he's not maybe as mainstream, or do you still count Punk as such a significant person in history? Lex, I'm going to start with you because, again, like you said, you tuned in to wrestling after Punk. Mirza, yes, Alex Mirza, you tuned in after Punk decided to take his bags and go home. What are your thoughts on that? On Roman's comments, do you agree with it, and do you still think Punk is significant?
See, here's the thing. I feel like when you compare him to like someone like The Rock, like I don't think it's a fair comparison. You know, The Rock was the biggest star in the WWE, whatever, at the time when more people were watching, you know, that product than ever have before in history. And Cena, you know, obviously he and Punk were around the same time, but Cena, of course, was you know, a bigger star for longer than Punk was, obviously, in WWE. And of course, he was also the one to break mainstream and go into Hollywood and everything. But for someone like The Rock, I don't think you can really. It's hard to make a comparison like that because, like I said, Rock was a star, the big top star in the company when far more people were watching WWE than you know were or have been since. So I think it's not really a fair comparison. CM Punk's always been kind of the guy for the wrestling fan, for like the more the more like indie style, I guess, for lack of a better word, like wrestling fans. Whereas someone like Rock or Cena is for more the mainstream, has more mainstream appeal, and was always going to have more mainstream appeal. But as far as what Roman said, I think in some ways he's right in the sense that Punk was never one to really break mainstream. That was never his goal. That was never really anything he did to really break into movies or Hollywood or whatever or anything else. But as far as being as over with the wrestling fans, I think he's probably, like I just said, he's over with the wrestling fans. He's not as over with the mainstream people, and but AEW is the wrestling fans. So I feel like that is the audience that he should become. That was right for him to come back to. And so I suppose Roman's right in some ways, but like I said, Punk is obviously as a hero to the wrestling fans as a whole. So it's tough to make that call. I'll just say that.
10.
Well, Roman does have a point. I mean, again, and Alex, you're correct as well that it's hard to compare The Rock to CM Punk. It's hard to compare Cena to CM Punk because they're kind of apples and oranges, but they're both within the fruit family, basically, in that sort of sense, if you want to use that term. Where I can see that Roman is correct is that just as Jose was saying, he doesn't have that mainstream mainstream, I guess, recognition in that sort of sense. Maybe some people do know this guy who came from the wrestling world and got his ass whooped in UFC a couple of times and everything, but maybe they know him for just as much as that. But obviously, like, wrestling was always more connected to its audience than any other genre of entertainment. And it doesn't matter if it's the WWE, if it's AEW or WCW or Impact Wrestling. There is a connection that that wrestling fans have with the product that they watch and the wrestlers that they watch as well. So in the sense where Roman is also, I guess, as Cena said back in 2017, where Roman is only half right, is that he needs to be. That's the thing. It's a niche. It's Vince Russo said this a few weeks ago on our show on Ringside Heat that wrestling has become more of a niche market audience than it used to be 20 years ago when he was at the helm of WWE head writer, basically. One thing, though, I will say when it comes to what's happening with AEW, especially in these past few months, since the quote unquote failures that they've that the fans have, I guess, interpreted things within AEW, if this episode of AEW Rampage, and CM Punk has just been announced that he will be appearing at Dynamite on Wednesday as well, or at least AEW has announced that he'll be appearing at Dynamite on Wednesday. If, as Vince Russo said this when he saw the NWO do their thing, and when Hogan turned to the NWO at Bash at the Beach, he told Vince and he told Bruce Pritchard at Bruce Pritchard's house, "Bro, we're dead. We are dead." And if Vince McMahon and the rest of his team don't have that same reaction to what happened today on AEW Rampage, or tonight on AEW Rampage, then they are dead.
Alex, Mirza, last points on that?
I don't know about that. I feel like I said before, CM Punk was, a hero to the wrestling fans, but I don't know that. Like, obviously, there's going to be fans that stopped watching when CM Punk left that are going to tune into AEW if they haven't already. But like you said, what Russo said, wrestling is such a niche product these days, and what AEW puts on is less sports entertainment and more wrestling for the most part. There's going to be audience growth because of this for sure, but I don't know. Comparing CM Punk to Hulk Hogan in that way, I don't think that's really calculable in the same way. Just from my perspective. But I will also say, like, everything Roman was saying about CM Punk not being as over as The Rock or Cena, or John Moxley could have been a top star if he wanted to be. You just know that he's like calling John on the phone afterwards, being like, "Hey, you see what I said about you on this interview? Look at all the fans freaking out about it, ha ha ha." So Roman's being Roman. He's being his character when he says that stuff, in my view. But I don't know. I feel like this is going to move the needle for sure, as they say. But I think we'll have to wait and see, exactly what kind of, effect, like really big effect it has. It could have one. I could be wrong, but I think the fans that CM Punk is going to bring back, he's going to bring back some fans, but I think a lot of the ones that, stopped watching WWE or gave up on WWE when he left if they're not watching it, like they're already watching AEW, I feel like, as we speak. So we'll see. I mean, there's definitely going to be some change. I don't think it's going to necessarily be, as monumental as like Hulk Hogan, turning on WCW. If they get Daniel Bryan though, then maybe we'll be telling a different story. But for now, we'll see what happens.
That is a big name that has yet to be revealed. Of course, rumors are as well happening. To wrap up, I was saying that even though, like, yes, that Punk isn't as mainstream as The Rock and Cena, I don't think that diminishes his importance in WWE.
No,
because
not at
yes,
all.
it's or his importance in wrestling, I should say, not WWE, because he hates it. Punk is still important, and I don't like. He's done a lot. He's left such an impact, and I don't think I've ever seen somebody in the last 7 years, like, for fans desperate to come back. Like, Punk said it himself tonight. People wanted it. People craved it. People were demanding Punk to show up again in WWE or in any wrestling capacity whatsoever. It happened. He's here. To Alexis' point, I do see your point. To Mirza's point, I do see your point in the sense that, yes, we don't know what the impact is going to be down the road. And it could be anybody's game. Yes, this is big. And of course, now everybody, I've seen a bunch of tweets already. SummerSlam, you're up again tomorrow night on the WWE Network in Vegas, and a massive crowd. I do agree that it's going to be something to follow up. What will happen? Who the heck knows? But for now, I know I'm going to enjoy SummerSlam. I think it's going to be interesting. But yes, I do think at the end of the day, AEW has struck gold. This is big for them, and congratulations to them. So on that note, I'm going to wrap the DC Emergency Pod here. Mr. Mirza, you can follow him at the Lex Spot on Twitter, at the Lex Spot, right? That's all. You can follow Alex Mirza there. Thank you, Alex. And you can follow Lex Tan on his personal Twitter at Lex Tan Media. Or if you want to catch me and Lex on Ringside Heat, at Ringside_Heat on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those fun little socials. I'm Jose Taboada. You can catch me at Taboada93. And we will see you guys next week. Have a great one.